Ladies and gentlemen, JAMESLANE here. This is the 69th episode of the American Reveille Podcast. We're doing Gina and the Jews Part 2. What's this about? This is about Gina Carano. Gina Carano getting fired, canned, thrown out, kicked onto the street by Disney and Lucasfilm only for speaking the truth. And what's the truth? The truth is that the left has been treating the right as did the locals and the Nazis before 1933 law began the purging of the Jews. Folks, she put it out there as a reference. I know people don't like to hear it, but people are weak. People are cowards. People run from the truth. And the truth is something terrible happened. Something terrible has happened many times in our reality, in our world, throughout history, and something terrible could happen again if we don't speak the truth, ladies and gentlemen. So, like I did on Gina and the Jews, number one, I began going through the historical period right before the Holocaust, all right? Into the Holocaust, into what happened to the Jewish people. We're going to continue that on this episode. We're going to talk about anti-Semitism. We're going to talk about the boycott of Jewish stores. We're going to talk about Kristallnacht, that thing that Arnold Schwarzenegger knows nothing about. All right? Shut up, rich boy. I don't want to hear it. Listen, folks, you want the real stuff? You want the truth? Stick with me. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you? How are you this Friday night? If you're watching this after Friday, I don't know what to tell you. Pretend it's a Mad Libs book and insert day of the week here. Ladies and gentlemen, insert day of the week here. I really love, I really keep wanting, my impulse is to pick up this mic stand. For those listening and not watching, I'm picking up this mic stand, this little short desktop mic stand. It's like the hammer of Thor for me. JAMESLANE here at the American Reveille, doing weird stuff with the mic stand. Whatever, I don't care. It's my show. They're censoring me anyway, so I'll talk about whatever the hell I'm going to talk about. And with the insanity of the censorship, I've decided that no topic is off the table, and that's why I'm doing risky material like this. That's why I'm doing Gina and the Jews. Nobody out there's got a title, Gina and the Jews. They'd be out of their mind. But guess what? I am a Jew, so I get to do whatever the hell I want. I mean, whatever. I'll just take advantage for once of the fact that maybe I get a little bit of the shine from the PC police on this one. Well, you know what? I won't. They'll look at my skin color because they're racist. They'll go, oh, you're white. You're white and Jewish? That doesn't work. You'd have to be Lenny Kravitz, all right? You got to be black and Jewish. That's the only way we're accepting of Jewish people. All the other people that are white and Jewish, they'll eventually have to go in these showers over here. Wait, what? Yeah, it could happen. You don't want to know, all right? This stuff, just wait. It's 20 right now, all right? It's 2021. It's the 20s, all right? This stuff was going on for 20 years in Nazi Germany, and then 1933 rolled around and kablooey, redonkulousness, and we're going to get into that in a second. But I told you a little bit about the fact that Ben Shapiro and Gina Carano teamed up. All right. I told you a little bit about that on the first one. I found an article on the Daily Wire by Ian Haworth. All right. Media shocked. Gina Carano fought back as her movie deal with Daily Wire goes viral. This is a long article. I'm not going to read a lot of it. I'm going to read 2 paragraphs out of it, all right? It's just important. I want you to see it. What a pretty face. What a classy-looking female actress there. What a classy-looking beep, boop, blop. 2 days after Gina Carano was reportedly axed by Disney in what critics alleged was a politically motivated hit, the Daily Wire announced that they will be partnering with the former Mandalorian actress who will produce and star in an upcoming film exclusively for Daily Wire members. I have a question for you, Gina Carano, if you ever see this. Do you think I qualify? I'm not Italian whatsoever. I know you are, right? So is there a chest hair minimum for a man to qualify as an Italian? Like if I was applying to become an Italian, would I have enough? Anyway, there's a inside joke about that. I'll tell all of you one day down the road. Remind me about it like 5 years from now when somebody actually hears this and says something about it. On Friday, the Daily Wire announced that it would be partnering with Carano to produce an upcoming film exclusively for Daily Wire members. Quote, "The Daily Wire is helping make one of my dreams to develop and produce my own film come true. I cried out and my prayer was answered," Carano said in a statement. The Daily Wire is offering a 25% discount for new members with the Carano-themed promo code Gina. That's not me being paid to say that. It's on here. I think that if I'm reading their article and Daily Wire's contributing to my content, I should at least do the right thing and give them a little plug. I mean, come on. That would be kind of shisty of me if not. There's a lot of jerk-offs on YouTube and on these other channels that give you these fake titles and do all these things and don't pay it forward, don't take care, don't pay respects to the people they get their content from, and then they disappear. Gotta have that respect, gotta have that courtesy, is what it is. Folks, I think this is a good thing, and I really hope that Ben Shapiro ventures into the realm of sci-fi. All right? If she's gonna write and produce a conservative film from the Daily Wire, and one day, mark my words, by the way, American Reveille LLC, right? The company that American Reveille Podcast represents, will eventually produce films and documentaries as well. We just have to build the actual company and catch up to the Daily Wire. Then we can do that stuff. All right. Then we can do that stuff. But all right, I hope they venture into sci-fi. I want to see Ben Shapiro and Gina Carano co-write like a conservative sci-fi movie, okay? I don't know if it would be good. I don't know if it would be bad, but I just want to see Ben Shapiro's ridiculous dry humor all over the film so we can feel awkward at certain points. I heard, look, no crap to be talked about. I'm just giving Ben a little shit, but to be completely honest, I've heard good things about the movie that came out. I haven't seen it yet, but I heard good things about the Formula One. So I wouldn't doubt, Gina Carano is very talented. Ben Shapiro, he's a Jew. I'm not gonna cut him any slack. The dude went to freaking like Harvard or whatever. He's good. He's good to go. Not worried about it. I'm sure he'll figure out how to write the movie if he come on. He's not even going to write the movie. I'm just talking out of my ass. He's going to hire somebody to do that stuff with her. They got a whole thing going, a whole shtick, a whole deal, and good for them. But I'm just glad that Gina has found a way to fight back some new platforms. I look forward. This makes me optimistic. I see good things coming for us on the right, guys. I see these economies coming out of nowhere, these markets coming out of nowhere, companies working together. Hell, we're going to have the street teams launched within the next few weeks, and we're going to be building a national coalition of companies and businesses and people, good things, good information to spread around. I mean, guys, just because crap isn't the way it used to be and we're fighting against this wicked ideology doesn't mean that we can't try to do the best we can for ourselves and make the most of things. What are we going to do? Sit here for the next 5 years? Oh, everything's falling apart and the left is ruining everything. No, we have to make the best of the situation. Crap's going to suck for a while, but we harden up and we fight back. We fight back using our words. We fight back using the psychology of the whole thing. Good policy, influencing our local legislatures, the peaceful wing, the right thing, the righteous way. We fight against it. All right. We push back. And in the meantime, we learn how the system changes. We learn their maneuvers. We learn their tactics, and we adapt our lives so that we can take advantage of the situation as best as possible and take care of our families. That's what we have to do. We can't just mope around. All right. That's not how this works. All right. So if you're feeling like that, if you're feeling a little insecure, I got something for you. I got more history, guys. I got more history from the 1930s and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the strife, the struggles, and the sadness of the Jews. All right. My heritage, folks. Listen. They went through a lot of crap. A lot of people in this world have gone through a lot of crap. Don't be lied to. Don't be convinced. Don't be brainwashed and hoodwinked by the left that wants you to believe that their race of choice to bring forward Marxism is the only race that's ever been oppressed. And the right's being oppressed right now. Make no mistake about it. People have died. People have been killed. People have been murdered. Who the hell do you think you are to judge what constitutes oppression when you have the audacity to believe that you can force people into starting in the same place and ending in the same place in the United States of America without causing the biggest, most explosive fracture in the history of our country? Again, like I stated in the first Gina and the Jews, part 1, ladies and gentlemen. All right, part 1. It just flows off the tongue, right? Gina and the Jews. Gina and the Jews going to the ice cream. Anyway, listen. I said it in the first one. But you know what? I'm getting too far off track. I've already lost my train of thought. All right. So let's just get to it. Why not? Let's start talking about anti-Semitism. All right, ladies and gentlemen, anti-Semitism. This is coming from the Holocaust Encyclopedia. All right. The United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. All right. We're going to talk about what this is. We're going to talk about all of these different things that went on back in the day, and we're going to compare them. We're going to compare them to what's happening today, to what Gina did, to what other happenings are going on, and we're going to show you how her firing was actually hypocritical. I'm going to prove to you, I'm going to keep proving to you that they are the actual anti-Semites. They are the actual bigots. Walt Disney was a big Jew hater, plain and simple. But Disney has the balls, the big brass balls, to let go such a talented actress. It's going to bite them in the ass. It's already biting them in the ass. Let's read. Anti-Semitism is a starting place for trying to understand the tragedy that would befall countless numbers of people during the Holocaust. All right. Throughout history. All right. Look at these. These are like, I want you to compare this. I want you to think of memes today. The left puts out these memes, all right, with stereotypical depictions of people from the right. Take a look at that. We're looking at a picture drawn from back in the day, probably 1920s, 30s, or 40s, right, with people on the bus, a normal person, and then the Jewish folks behind them with large noses, large cartoonish ears, with all the wealth, with everything, gossiping, looking down their noses at people. Folks, come on. It's propaganda, just like the propaganda the left puts out today. Throughout history, Jews have faced prejudice and discrimination known as anti-Semitism, driven nearly 2,000 years ago. All right, by the Romans from the land now called Israel. They spread through the globe and tried to retain their unique beliefs and culture while living as a minority. In some countries, Jews were welcomed and they enjoyed long periods of peace with their neighbors. In European societies where the population was primarily Christian, Jews found themselves increasingly isolated as outsiders. Jews do not share the Christian belief that Jesus is the Son of God, and many Christians considered this refusal to accept Jesus' divinity as arrogant. For centuries, the church taught that the Jews were responsible for Jesus' death, not recognizing, as most historians do today, that Jesus was executed by the Roman government because officials viewed him as a political threat to their rule. Added to religious conflicts were economic ones. Rulers placed restrictions on Jews, barring them from holding certain jobs and from owning land. So, I know of a certain congressional candidate in Florida who can't buy guns anymore. You know about that, right? I know about a certain Italian actress, a Gina Carano, who just got fired. I know about a lot of people who are getting fired, who can't hold certain jobs, who can't get legal representation, who can't even have a meeting, a conversation, can't even feed their children. Because why? Because they were a Republican, because they were conservative and they were vocal about it, because they voted for Donald Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem on our hands. How is that not similar? At the same time, since the early church did not permit usury, I hope I'm saying that right, lending money at interest, all right? Jews came to fill the vital but unpopular role as moneylenders for the Christian majority. In more desperate times, Jews became scapegoats for many problems people suffered. And doesn't that sound familiar when the right becomes scapegoats for the problems of the left? Doesn't it? For example, they're blamed for causing the Black Death, the plague that killed thousands of people throughout Europe during the Middle Ages. Oh, really? Because conservatives are blamed for spreading coronavirus, even though lefties rioted in the streets all year. All right? That's not similar? Come on. In Spain in the 1400s, Jews were forced to convert to Christianity, leave the country, or be executed. Come on. Really? They want us to renounce. They want us to, in public, explain why we were wrong for voting for Donald Trump. That doesn't sound like a conversion, like an inquisition. In Russia and Poland in the late 1800s, the government organized or did not prevent violent attacks on Jewish neighborhoods called pogroms, in which mobs murdered Jews and looted their homes and stores. I probably said it wrong in the first one. Whatever. Pogroms. I said programs a bunch of times and I explained it weirdly. Pogroms. I'll just say pogroms. It's just awkward to say pogrom. But those were attacks on Jewish neighborhoods. And how long did we see Antifa and Black Lives Matter burning down our cities? How is that not similar? As ideas of political equality and freedom spread in Western Europe during the 1800s, Jews became almost equal citizens under the law. At the same time, however, new forms of anti-Semitism emerged. European leaders who wanted to establish colonies in Africa and Asia argued that whites were superior to other races and therefore had to spread and take over the weaker and less civilized races. All right? That's European leaders. European leaders, all right, who wanted to spread their colonies, all right? That belief, that white supremacist belief, when the left say that that's a genetic belief that passes down people who are white through their blood, that is Nazi talk. That is racist. That is bigotry. That is evil, all right? That makes it wrong. That is critical race theory, ladies and gentlemen. That is critical race theory, plain and simple. Some writers applied this argument to Jews, too, mistakenly defining Jews as a race of people called Semites who shared common blood and physical features. This kind of racial anti-Semitism meant that Jews remained Jews by race, even if they converted to Christianity. Right? What's that mean to us? Why is that similar? That means that when they start arresting people and people on the right start bending the knee and saying, we'll believe whatever you want us to believe, just don't hurt our families, don't take our children, don't take our jobs, don't starve us, don't imprison us, don't kill us. They'll look back and say, no, years ago, you supported the right. Get into the car, get into the van, get into the train. Here's your zip tie. Here's your black bag. Here's your gulag. Here's your pickaxe. Break these big rocks into little rocks if you're lucky enough to live, ladies and gentlemen. That's what that becomes. That's what that becomes. Plain and simple. All right. Some politicians began using the idea of racial superiority in their campaigns as a way to get votes. You don't see the left using BLM, Antifa, using the racial justice, using this Marxism as a way to get votes. You don't see that? Come on. I know you see that. Don't play games. Karl Lueger, 1844 to 1910, was one such politician. He became the mayor of Vienna, Austria at the end of the century through the use of anti-Semitism. All right. He appealed to voters. He appealed to them, all right, by blaming the Jews for the bad economic times. All right. And what do you think Biden's going to do when the economy crashes? He's going to blame Trump and the right. How is that different? How is that different than Luger or Hitler or anyone else? Luger was a hero to a young man named Adolf Hitler. Oh, what do you know? Who was born in Austria in 1889. Hitler's ideas, including his views of the Jews, were shaped during the years he lived in Vienna, where he studied Luger's tactics and the anti-Semitic newspapers and pamphlets that multiplied during Luger's long rule. Folks, how is that different from propaganda? How is that different from the colleges teaching kids about critical race theory, teaching kids that our country is evil, lying about history, trying to bring down the greatest country from within? Key dates, folks, 1890s. 1890s. We're going way back. All right, way back. That's over 130 years ago. A concocted Jewish conspiracy. In France, a member of the Russian secret police concocts the protocols of the elders of Zion. If you don't know what concocts means, if you're a lefty and you have a small dictionary in your brain that doesn't work right, concoct means made up, since nothing's make-believe to the left. The protocols promote claims that there exists a Jewish conspiracy to take over the world. That sounds very Sorosy. These forged documents are presented as the minutes of a supposed meeting of world Jewish leaders in which they finalized plans to dominate the world and suggest that the Jews have formed secret organizations and agencies which they aim to control and manipulate political parties, the economy, the press, and public opinion. Someone called Davos. Hold the phone. George Soros, is that your monkey? Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but that kind of sounds like the whole Great Reset cabal to me. I wonder where they got the idea from, but all of this sounds very familiar, doesn't it? It really does. The protocols are published in countries throughout the world, including the United States, and used by anti-Semites to reinforce claims of the Jewish conspiracy. Then in the 1920s and the 1930s, the protocols are used to gain support for Nazi Party anti-Semitic ideology and policies. What makes this any different than somebody reading Karl Marx, somebody reading writings from 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 100 years ago, 20 years ago, and forming their own evil view? That's what's happened. That's what's happening now. We are reaping the consequences. We are living through the hell of it. This is what it is. All right. 1894, the Dreyfus Affair divides France. Captain Alfred Dreyfus, I'll just say Dreyfus, a Jewish officer in the French army, is arrested and falsely accused of handing over to Germany documents involving the national defense of France. After a summary trial before a military court, Dreyfus is found guilty of treason and sentenced to life imprisonment on Devil's Island, located off the friggin' coast of French Guyana. This case divides the French nation into two opposing groups. Those who insist that Dreyfus is guilty, and that's conservatives, nationalists, and anti-Semitic groups. Now remember, in today's America, conservatives and nationalists are separate from anti-Semitic groups, as there's a hierarchy. There's a higher echelon of Democrats that are anti-Semitic, and they're controlling a bunch of low information Democrats out in the public that don't realize that they're harming Israel, that they're harming the Jewish population while being convinced that they're helping them. It's all a big lie. They talk about the big lie from Nazi Germany. Well, the Democrat Party's been telling the big lie for decades and decades and decades and decades. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Those who insist that Dreyfus should receive a fair trial. That's liberals and intellectuals, okay? In 1899, Dreyfus receives a new trial, but is again found guilty by a military court. However, the president of the French Republic intervenes, granting him a pardon. Shortly before World War I, Dreyfus is fully vindicated by a civilian court. The controversy surrounding the Dreyfus affair reflects latent anti-Semitism in the French officer corps and other conservative French groups. Now, April 1897. By the way, why does that not sound any different than what happened today? Didn't we see these false accusations? Didn't we see the witch hunt, all right, of General Flynn, the witch hunt now on the second impeachment of Donald Trump? All of these people attacked, people in prison, Roger Stone, Trump pardoned these people, the country divided. How does 1894 not sound similar to anything we're going through today? Again, Gina could have said anything about any of this, and she'd still be correct. Still be correct. Disney and Lucasfilms, a bunch of hypocrites, a bunch of assholes, a bunch of idiots. They don't know a wrist lock from a wristwatch, as somebody would say in the pro wrestling industry. What they do know, though, is how to lie, how to cheat, how to steal, how to pretend, how to steal this country from right under our noses. Ladies and gentlemen, April 1897, Karl Lueger, anti-Semitic mayor of Vienna. All right, Karl Lueger is elected the mayor of Vienna. He holds this position for 13 years until his death in 1910. Lueger, the co-founder of the Christian Socialist Party, uses economic anti-Semitism to gain support for the small businessmen and artisans who are suffering after the surge of capitalism during the Industrial Revolution in Austria. Oh, blaming capitalism. Here, look, Marxism right at the center of this, too. He claims that the Jews have a monopoly on capitalism and that they compete unfairly in the economic arena. This form of anti-Semitism is used by other right-wing parties in Austria. Do you see that? The right wing here is against capitalism. So flip-flop it. The left wing here in America is against capitalism. They claim, because the old history from another country, the right wing meant something else. They claim it's the same as ours. It's BS. It's garbage. It's a lie. All right? It's a lie. The left here believes what the right back then believed then. Plain and simple. Okay? It's not an impossibility. It's not ridiculous. If it makes no sense to you, then maybe you need to go eat some magic mushrooms or something. I don't know what to tell you. All right, look, this form of anti-Semitism, it's used by other right-wing parties, yada, 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 early 20th century, as a means to broaden their popular appeal. Adolf Hitler, a resident of Vienna during Lueger's mayoral reign, is greatly influenced both by Lueger's anti-Semitism and by his ability to rally public support. Lueger's ideas are reflected in the Nazi Party program in 1920s Germany. That is how your old contacts carry forward, your old inspirations, the things that make you believe in other things as you grow and develop, as you get older and older and become more powerful and more powerful. Just like the racist, the bigot that Biden looked up to had an effect on him, just like Karl Marx had an effect on Bernie Sanders. The writings of old, the teachings of old, shape and form the minds of the young and the developing and even the middle-aged, growing into positions of power. That's just how it works. So when somebody was associated with somebody in the past, they can say they changed all they want. All right? Barack Obama literally had direct ties to people in the Weather Underground, to Ayers, to the gentleman, to terrorists, and he became the president of the United States. So what does that tell you, ladies and gentlemen? What does that tell you? And we're going to have an interview very soon where we talk to somebody who wrote a book that has a lot of firsthand knowledge of this stuff. And it's going to be very intriguing, but I don't want to spoil that too much. That's coming up. All right. We're going to read the next article here, the boycott of Jewish businesses. All right. The boycott of Jewish businesses. And now remember, we're seeing people silenced, businesses silenced, businesses canceled. All right. What makes that any different than a boycott from back in the day? We didn't have digital technology in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. We didn't have it. So this is the equivalent. Pull your head out of your ass and see. All right? God is in the details, ladies and gentlemen. See the tree in the forest. All right? Look very closely. Look very closely. In 1933, about 500,000 Jews lived in Germany, less than 1% of the total population. Most Jews in Germany were proud to be Germans, citizens of a country that had produced many great poets, writers, musicians, and artists. More than 100,000 German Jews had served in the German army during World War I, and many were decorated for bravery. Jews held important positions in government and taught in Germany's great universities. One of the 38 Nobel Prizes won by German writers and scientists between 1905 and 1936, 14 of them were Jews. Marriage between Jews and non-Jews was becoming more common. Although German Jews continued to encounter some discrimination in their social lives and professional careers, most were confident of their future as Germans. They spoke the German language and regarded Germany as their home. Folks, again, you're going to ask me, how does this relate? How does this make sense with anything? Well, didn't you see how good things were going? Didn't you see how good things we're getting with race relations, with class structure, the middle class growing bigger and bigger, including more minorities, including more people, a more equal playing ground for everyone. And then all of a sudden, some crazy ideology got pumped in right through the needle into the arm. That is social media, ladies and gentlemen. It got pumped in like heroin. The woke poison, the black tar woke poison, ladies and gentlemen. That is the problem. All right. It came in and destroyed how good everybody was being to each other. They think it's helping when in fact they're doing every little thing that would have been considered racist and is considered racist by what the right goes by. But the left has developed a brand new dictionary, ladies and gentlemen, the dictionary of the woke. Okay? The dictionary of the woke. People are marrying each other. People are mixing the classes, mixing the races. People are getting along good in this world. People were getting along good. Let's read. When the Nazis came to power, the lives of German Jews changed drastically. When the Bidens came to power, the lives of right-wing Republicans and conservatives changed drastically. See, we can play this game. On April 1st, 1933, the Nazis carried out the first nationwide planned action against them, a boycott of Jewish businesses. Nazi spokesman claimed the boycott was an act of revenge against both German Jews and foreigners, including U.S. and English journalists who had criticized the Nazi regime. That sounds familiar. Last time I checked, Gateway Pundit and others were completely removed off Twitter. Project Veritas removed off Twitter. Canceled, ladies and gentlemen. All the news organizations that criticized the left, that stated what they were doing was wrong, dirty, dastardly, and illegal, are gone. How is that different? I must have named dozens so far since we started this, dozens of similarities that gets Gina off the hook for anti-Semitism. But we're going to keep going. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more articles after this. You're going to know, son. You're going to know some history, son. After this is done, son, you're going to know what the hell went on back then, and you're going to be better prepared for what's coming in the future. When the Nazis came to power, the lives of the German Jews changed drastically. On April 1st, 1933, the Nazis carried out this nationwide boycott of the Jewish businesses. The Nazi spokesman claimed the boycott was an act of revenge. We talked about that. The stormtroopers, they stood menacingly in front of Jewish-owned shops. I don't know if you remember the rioters, the looters, standing in front, breaking down and destroying businesses, not allowing, look at Chaz, look at Chop, look at Portland, not allowing people to commute, to do business, to converge, to come together, to be a community. No, they destroy communities just like the Nazi regime. Ladies and gentlemen, the 6-pointed Star of David was painted on yellow, and black. Across thousands of doors and windows, signs were posted saying, "Don't buy from the Jews. The Jews are our misfortune." Right? What was boycott Goya? What is canceling people, canceling companies, making sure their children can't eat? I don't know about you, but that sounds very much like a digital 6-pointed Star of David. All right. That's what getting canceled online is. That's what being shadow banned is. My accounts have a 6-pointed Star of David on them because I am unclean and unwanted. I am dirty. I am just like the Jews from back in the 1920s or 30s. I am on the right. That is what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. The nationwide boycott was not very successful and lasted just a day, but it marked the beginning. All right. These things only accelerate. That's what history teaches us. It gets worse and worse and worse unless somebody puts a stop to it. All right. It marked the beginning of a nationwide campaign by the Nazi Party against the entire German Jewish population. A week later, the government, the government came in and passed a law restricting employment in the civil service to Aryans. Jewish government workers, including teachers in public schools and universities, were fired. They always go with the white thing, folks, but we're not Germany. It doesn't have to be a white thing. We're Americans. We're from the same soil. It doesn't matter your color. It doesn't matter. All right? But folks, this is what is happening to people on the right. Why do you think the left can call a Mexican American a white supremacist or a black cop a racist name and get away with it? Because this is in their plans. They believe it's in the blood. They believe we are the unclean. This is scary stuff, but it's real. It's real, folks. Key dates: March 1933, the SA reign of terror against Jews throughout Germany. The SA, which are the stormtroopers, they attacked Jewish-owned department stores in German cities in an attempt to segregate Jews from the rest of society. Local police, not yet under Nazi control, unsuccessfully attempted to stop the attacks. Members of the SA continued the rampage and entered courtrooms, dragging Jewish lawyers and judges into the streets where they were subjected to humiliating public acts. Don't you remember? Don't you see? Haven't you heard? They're calling for this. They're calling for the people on the right to be put on lists, sent to re-education camps, made to publicly be humiliated, publicly apologize. People are already being publicly humiliated. It's just public digital, ladies and gentlemen. It's 2021. The public space is digital. This has already been happening. We're already on the way to a digital holocaust. Open your mind and see the big picture, ladies and gentlemen. It isn't 1930. It's 2021. All right? These things are done differently. These attacks are publicized by international Jewish organizations and the press, which urge a boycott of German goods. Don't you see the right? We're boycotting Disney Plus right now. Boycotting Goodyear, ladies and gentlemen. Who else are we boycotting? All these different Netflix with cuties. We're doing that in response to them screwing with us, to them doing horrible things. So what did the Nazis do? In response, the Nazis organized a nationwide boycott of Jewish businesses in Germany, blaming the Jews for anti-German tone of the international press. See, and then they got gaslighted. They boycotted them, and then the German Nazis said that the Jews were the ones doing it back to them, turning the story. So no matter what they did, they couldn't defend themselves. They looked like the bad guys. What do you think's happening to us on the right? No matter what we do, we look like the bad guys. That is not our fault. That is by design, ladies and gentlemen. That is by design. April 1st, all right? April 1st, a month later, nationwide boycott of Jewish-owned businesses. 1933 at 10 a.m., The SA and the SS members stood in front of the Jewish-owned businesses throughout Germany to inform the public that the proprietors of these establishments are Jewish. The word Jude, German for Jew, is often smeared on store display windows with a Star of David painted in black and yellow across the doors. Anti-Jewish signs accompany these slogans. In some towns, the SA marches through the streets singing anti-Jewish slogans and party songs. In other towns, violence accompanies the boycott. In Kiel, a Jewish lawyer is killed. The official boycott ends at midnight. And we've seen this. We've seen marching in the streets. We've seen Black Lives Matter and Antifa do this. And what happens? What is a shadow banning? Like I said, the shadow ban is a 6-point Star of David smeared across your digital footprint for yourself or for your business. Plain and simple. That's what it is. That's what we need to see it as. April 7th, 1933, law dismisses Jews from civil service. The Nazi government enacts a law for the restoration of the professional civil service. This law seeks to exclude those considered to be opponents of the Nazi state, Jews and political opponents. What do you think is going to happen when they determine that 80 million Trump supporters are terrorists? Then they'll all get fired. Then they'll all get dismissed from civil service. When does this become real to you, ladies and gentlemen? When does this become real? All right. As a result, civil service employees are forced to prove their Aryan descent by documenting the religion of their parents and grandparents. If unable to do so, they are dismissed from service. Hitler reluctantly concedes to President Paul von Hindenburg's demand to exempt from dismissal those civil servants who are veterans of World War I or whose close relatives had fallen in that conflict. Similar laws passed in the following weeks that affected Jewish lawyers and all Jewish doctors. Why isn't this possible? Why couldn't this be happening? It's completely possible. All right? It's completely possible. What do you think is going on digitally when the right is being erased from the public sphere? And when they have to appeal, when they have to beg, when they have to publicly apologize for something they didn't do, just to be maybe accepted back, but most of the time they just get it worse. That's the digital version of April 7th, 1933. That is the game that they're playing, folks. And it just goes on and on. We got the Nuremberg race laws. Let's talk about it. All right, let's talk about the Nuremberg race laws. I know, it's long, all right? It's long. We're going to do this one and then split it again into one more. We'll do a part 3. But this is important. You need to know your history. So I'm trying to have a good time. I'm chilling back here, getting a little pissed off sometimes because the hypocrisy is just so blatant. You can chew on it. You can taste it. It stinks. It's thick. It's painful. It's irritating. It makes you want to friggin' scream. It makes you want to scream. But you have to press it down deep inside and use your brain to solve the issue. All right? Because if you're infuriated, if you're upset, if you don't understand how to harness the energy, it will paralyze you and you'll accomplish jack shit. That's what you'll accomplish. Take it from me, folks. Take it from the guy that sleeps 2 to 3 friggin' hours a night and is doing a million things. Trust me. That's the truth. All right. At the annual party held in Nuremberg. All right. This is the rally party. This is the Nazis celebrating how awesome they are, which is not. Come on. You think the left wouldn't have a party about how cool they are? You think they wouldn't bask in the smell of their own shit? Come on. Come on. At the annual party held in Nuremberg in 1935, the Nazis announced new laws which institutionalized many of the racial theories prevalent in Nazi ideology. All right. The laws excluded German Jews from Reich citizenship, from German citizenship. It prohibited them from marrying or having sexual relations with persons of German or related blood. Ancillary ordinances of the laws. They disenfranchised Jews, deprived them of their political rights. All right. When is it going to be illegal for us to vote? Huh? When's that coming? The Nuremberg laws, as they became known, did not define a Jew as someone with particular religious beliefs. Instead, anyone that had 3 or 4 Jewish grandparents was defined as a Jew, regardless of whether that individual identified himself or herself as a Jew or belonged to the Jewish religious community. Many Germans had not practiced Judaism for years, but still found themselves caught in the grip of the Nazi terror. Even people with Jewish grandparents who had converted to Christianity were defined as Jews. Your tweets, your Facebook posts, ladies and gentlemen, your digital footprint will be used to put the shackles on your wrists. Mark my words. If we don't put this ideology down with our brains and our mouths, ladies and gentlemen, plain and simple, that's how it goes. I don't give a crap what they say, who they want to cancel, who they want to blame, who nobody wants to take ownership of, but Gina has every right to make this comparison, every right to make any comparison with what happened, whether you like it or not, whether you're soft-skinned and you don't like to hear about history. Oh, the Jews, we don't want to hear about the horrible things that happened because we're wimps and we don't want to hear about history and the truth so that, people forget and make the same stupid mistakes. Because unfortunately, that's what the man animal is really good at, falling on our own freaking self 20,000 bazillion times before we actually learn any damn thing. All right. Listen. What's happened's bad. All right. Has anyone died in a gas chamber yet? Not here. But the Uyghurs in China, that's a whole other story. Let's keep reading. For a brief period after Nuremberg, in the weeks before and during the 1936 Olympic Games held in Berlin, the Nazi regime actually moderated its anti-Jewish attacks and even removed some of the signs saying Jews unwelcome from public places because Hitler didn't want international criticism of his government to result in the transfer of the games to another country. Oh, lying to the international world? How would that ever happen? God, that doesn't happen today. BS. All right. Such a loss would have been a serious blow to German prestige. Yeah, they sucked a big one at that game, though. Those Olympic Games, Hitler was pissed. After the Olympic Games, in which the Nazis did not allow German Jewish athletes to participate, the Nazis again stepped up the persecution of German Jews. In 1937 and 1938, the government set out to impoverish Jews, all right, by requiring them to register their property, then by Aryanizing Jewish businesses, all right, Aryanizing. This meant that the Jewish workers and managers were dismissed, and the ownership of most Jewish businesses was taken over by non-Jewish Germans. That sounds very evil and socialist at the same time, very evil and socialist. German, non-Jewish Germans who bought them at bargain prices fixed by Nazis. Jewish doctors were forbidden to treat non-Jews, and Jewish lawyers were not permitted to practice law, all right? That's how this goes. And when you create an environment where every company is scared that they're going to lose shareholder value when they don't follow the march of social justice, 80 million plus Americans are experiencing this right now. Right now, folks. And it's the exact same thing. I don't give a damn what anybody says. Stop downplaying it. You weak cowardice Fs. Stop downplaying it. This is happening. This is real. It's real. Like everyone in Germany, Jews were required to carry ID cards, but the government added special identifying marks to theirs, a red J stamped on them, with new middle names for all those Jews who did not possess recognizably Jewish first names. Israel for males, Sarah for females. Such cards allowed the police to identify Jews easily. So even if you didn't believe in it, they'd make all of your papers and everything look like you did. All right? Like a tiny amount of people attacked the Capitol, all right? Yet the left, they're calling 80 million Americans terrorists. 80 million people that were always peaceful. But a couple people screwed it up, all right? A couple little people, just a few, all right? Nobody is saying that about the left. Nobody's saying the entire left is like BLM and Antifa burning down cities. We might as well. They say it about us. They say it about us for the right. So when does it become time? Because that's happening right now. Look, they put this stamp on there back with the old technology in the 1930s, right? The old technology. Now we got the new technology. So what do they do for us? They mark us. They shadow ban us. They let us know that the right is unclean. The right is dirty. The right needs to go on a list. The right needs to be specially identified as unwelcome and unwanted. Even if they don't want to be involved in politics, if you supported Donald Trump, you are just as guilty as the people that breached the Capitol building on the 6th. It's a corrupted and disgusting way of thinking, and the left owns that stuff. Key dates, folks. Key dates, and then we're going to wrap it up for this one, coming up on an hour. Key dates, folks. September 15th, 1935. Nuremberg laws are instituted. At their annual party rally, the Nazis announced these new laws. They revoke German citizenship for Jews. We talked about that, right? You can't marry. You can't have sex. You can't do anything with somebody that's not a Jew at this point. Racial infamy, it's called. All right? At this point, it's become criminal. It's a criminal thing to do. All right? If you are right-wing and you're married to a lefty, this is the equivalent of them saying you can't be with your wife. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Consequently, the Nazis classified Jews from all over. They take thousands of people who technically aren't Jews. They make them Jews. Tons of people who weren't practicing Jews or weren't even involved at all, they were killed because it's in their blood. That's what Hitler, that's what all of them believed. Just like the left believes that white supremacy is in the blood of hardworking Americans. Black, white, or indifferent. If you're on the right, white supremacy is in your blood. That's what the left believes. All right. I've said it 1,000 times in these last few episodes. I'm going to keep saying it because it's the damn truth. All right. 18th of October, 1935, new marriage requirements instituted. The law for the protection of the hereditary health of the German people. That means you can't interbreed with us. You're disgusting. Requires all prospective marriage partners to obtain from the public health authorities a certificate of fitness to marry. Such certificates are refused to those suffering from hereditary illnesses and contagious diseases. If you have COVID, you can't get married. If you have COVID, you can't have a business or own a house. If you have COVID in New York and they pass those things we talked about a few months ago, you got to go to the camp. You got to go to the camp. Your family's got to go to the camp until you get better. When will you get better? Who knows what they're trying to cure or how long that would ever be. And then, of course, November 14th, 1935, these laws are extended to other groups. The first supplemental decree of the Nuremberg laws extends the prohibition on marriage or sexual relations between people who could produce racially suspect offspring. A week later, the Minister of the Interior interprets this to mean relationships between those of German or related blood, of Roma, Gypsies, Black people, any of their offspring, no interbreeding with the unclean. Absolutely atrocious, absolutely disgusting. Let me make it clear. The right in this country are open, welcoming, and inclusive, all right, to anyone of any skin color, of any shade, all right? There are some deep conservatives that have an issue with some of the way people live their life. But people are going to have to learn to accept other people. It is what it is. It's 2021. But the new right, the right that's been around for a very long time now, for years now, we the people at least, maybe not the elites in Washington, but we the people have always been accepting of everybody. Everybody, every belief, every orientation, every gender, everything. Male, female, black, white, purple, gay, straight. We don't care. Come love America. Come love freedom. Come wave an American flag and say we're the best country in the world. Work your ass off, make your living, and live your dream. That's what America is for. But the left wants to turn this into a socialist shithole. They want to turn this into hell. It's not going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. Too many good people are opening their mouths. And though we're censored now, we won't be censored forever. And I promise you, whether you see this today, tomorrow, or in 2 years, it will have an impact. Folks, there's still 4 more of these articles. You still got more history to go. There's still going to be more Gina news. There's going to be a part 3. It's coming out. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching. Follow, share, subscribe, like, comment. Get the word out about the American American Reveille. We are shadow banned. We are not anywhere to be found. So please talk about what we're doing. And if you could find it in your hearts to give us a couple dollars, head over to www.americanreveille.com, REVEILLE.com. Hit the support us tab. Give us a couple bucks so that we can put it towards our street teams that are going to be launching within the next few weeks, so we can get the word out manually, since the big tech oligarchs don't want to let us do the right thing and get it out on the public platforms, the social space, since they don't want to let us be seen, be heard, since they want to put us in a digital prison. We're going to use the back door. We're going to put sneakers on concrete, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to put stickers. We're going to put out flyers. We're going to let people know what's up. We're going to bring together a national coalition the old way, the way that they can't follow, the way that they can't track and see, the way that they will never expect, ladies and gentlemen. And when it's time, we'll come together and we'll use our First Amendment rights to peacefully push the people's agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you in Gina and the Jews, part 3, next. All right? Head to the website, www.americanreveille.com. Do me this favor, all right? Hit it up. Hit it up, hit it up, hit it up. If you loved this podcast, if you like what we're doing and you feel like supporting us, hit the support us tab. We take Bitcoin. You can go on PayPal. We take any amount of donation. We appreciate it greatly. Guys, it really helps. It goes a huge way while we're fighting off this censorship. We have some new articles tracing the real pandemic. It's fantastic. And also, Andrew Penn put out Joe Biden's America Last Agenda, a great one as well. I have another article coming out tonight too. Folks, sign up for the mailing list. Please, please, please. You don't want to lose touch with what we are doing across this country. And please contact us. If you have any feedback, if there's anything you'd like to ask me, if there's any way you believe you can contribute with any of your skill sets, or if you'd like to start building up an American Reveille street team in your neighborhood, please let me know. JAMESLANE at AmericanReveille.com, JAMESLANE@AmericanReveille.com, or you can hit the contact button or go to AmericanReveille.com and then hit the contact button. Folks, we're still on YouTube, so if that's where you're watching us, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, share. But they are shadow banning us. That's why you'll notice that we were getting thousands of views, and now all of a sudden we're barely getting any. That's called shadow banned, all right? So we're moving a lot of our stuff to Odyssey. This is a great platform, ODYSEE.com, all right? Most of my videos are up there. Most of them are up there, and I like them. I think they're a great platform. They're easy to use. It feels like YouTube, so it could be our version of YouTube. Try it out, ODYSEE.com. I'm there as American_Reveille. Of course, the links will be in the description below, and of course, I'm on Rumble, guys. I am on Rumble as well. Head over to rumble.com, find me American_Reveille. I'm in the comment section below, or I'm in the description section. You can find the link there. Head over here, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I need all the support I can get. We are having a very big hit to our distribution. People are not seeing what we're putting out because they killed Parler. And like I told you in the podcast episode, we don't even know if Parler's coming back. So we got to start from scratch. So I need your help, folks. Please help. All right. We can do this together. We really, really can. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, guys, 5-star rating, leave a review, please. Please, please, please. That's a big deal. Subscribe there. Follow me there. Share. If you are an audio listener, I am on most platforms. American Reveille Podcast on most platforms, folks. If you're a listener and you know people who like AM radio and different things like that, tell them about the American Reveille, please. I need your help, and I'm depending on you to really spread the word, all right? We're doing everything we can. You know that I barely sleep and eat. I'm putting it out. I'm putting the hours in, folks, for you, for me, for everybody, folks. So I appreciate it. I thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I will see you in the next segment. Bye.